He cheated with the pastor's wife, part 2. So I had to sit up for this, okay? I had to sit up for this. If y'all gonna get all this tea, I had to sit up for this. So, the sign that I missed that I should have caught on the way coming back from Charlotte back home was that we got into South Carolina. So we're in South Carolina. We're probably, I believe at this point we were still on I-26 if I'm not mistaken. No, not I-26. We were on I-77 coming out of Charlotte into the merging in 95. So before we got to Columbia, we were on this long stretch of highway. There's the wire median, and I'm driving, okay? Like I'm paying attention to the road. I'm looking, and I notice in the opposite direction, there's this car that all of a sudden it just literally, it's like it jerked and it jumped that wire and flipped over into our lane. And I literally, there was no braking. I had to literally floor it, and the back and the flipping of that car literally missed my vehicle by almost a hair, like by a hair, literally, like, and so but it flipped into the cars behind us. So it flipped and hit like 2 or 3 cars behind us. So we pull over on the side of the road. Everybody who's witnessed it, everybody's getting out the car. We're going, checking people, like, we don't know what we about to see, because one car looked like it was just mangled. It was crazy. And so we, that happens, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, so now when I look back on that, I'm like, man, that was like a sign telling me, girl, you about to go on you about to go on a crash course of love or something. Like, I don't know. That's how I'm looking at it now. So you tell me when we get to the end of this what you think, okay? So we get back, he gets settled in, and we already had a date. Like, we weren't going to have a wedding, none of that stuff like that. Although now one thing about it, he had never been married, and he didn't have any kids. So one of the discussions that we had was children. Even though I was diagnosed HIV positive, I knew that I could still have children. I knew that my partner could remain negative if my partner's negative, and that my child could be born negative. So I knew this stuff, and he and I had the discussion, and I also made sure whenever I went to appointments, he was at appointments with me. Like, that was something that I made sure always took place. So we decide we're going to get married. So we went to the courthouse. Like, I had my dress, we had rings, we had, I had friends and family that were there. His family wasn't there, because again, this was just, we went and did this. Again, the Lord sent me, this was somebody the Lord sent, okay? This is what I'm thinking the whole time. And when I get to the end, y'all hear my rationality of how I feel now, you're going to be like, girl, like, that's why I'm sharing this, because I feel like there are people who might go through something like this and they ain't seeing stuff. Like, now, because I done went through it, I see a lot of stuff. I'm comfortable being alone. I don't feel like dealing with nobody who finna come and give me, look, what they think I want, okay? So, October 25th comes, we get married, and, we have our little weekend away for the honeymoon or whatever. We go and do that, and then, come back, and we starting a married life. Kids are in school, and he had been looking for work. He had been looking for a job, all that stuff. So, here we are, going through all of this, and it started being a thing where he was just applying for jobs. He would go, they would do background checks, and because they would go back so far, they didn't go have that, it's a 7, some places they'll go back 7 years, some will go all the way back. A lot of places he was going to, they were like, oh no, we can't hire you because of this. So he was hitting a brick wall. Now, one thing I can tell you about him, I'm not a smoker. And at the time, I had not really been a drinker. That was one of my moments when I had kind of stopped drinking. But he did drink, and he smoked cigarettes, okay? And he had been smoking cigarettes since he was like 12, 13 years old. I think he was young, okay? And so I was helping him, fill out job applications, different things like that. And so during that time period also, this is when we had the discussion again about, having a baby. And it became a thing. I said, okay, you know what? Let's go to the doctor, because we both need to make sure we understand what we want, what we're trying to do, X, Y, and Z, and all that stuff. And so we went to the doctor. The doctor said, okay, here's your options. You can either look at in vitro fertilization. Okay, we know that's cost money. That's not a cheap route. I've heard about people doing that all the time. Then the doctor said, well, you have two other options. You can use a turkey baster. So what does that mean? That means literally he would do whatever he needed to do in the cup. I would get a turkey baster, turkey baster it up, and basically, that whole process. If you know what if you know what it means to use a turkey baster on a turkey, Okay, and then the other option was to make sure that I remain undetectable, that I'm taking my medication like I've been doing, and that way, there's no way that he would contract the virus if we just had sex. So the choice at that point was have sex. Now, one thing I was very adamant about, because I was afraid. Here I am, a person who's HIV positive. I've already had someone put in prison for knowingly infecting me with the virus. So I did not want to put myself in a position where I, in return, was going to be going to jail for doing something, And so, I told him, I was like, listen, if we are doing this, I do not want to have unprotected sex more than we need to do at all. So we had unprotected sex. The first month we tried, we had unprotected sex. That one time during my ovulation window, if you guys know about the ovulation window, usually it's like a 7-day window. We had during that ovulation window, one time. If it ain't work, we went to the next month. And the second month of doing that, I was pregnant. All right, and so that's when I got pregnant. And we went through that whole thing. Now, right around December, going into the new year, again, here I am. I'm doing what I usually do. I'm helping him go through and do fill out job applications. I go to what I would always do is I would go to his email, and I would just make sure I check off different places that he's already applied for, so I don't go and try to do a reapplication. No wasting time. So I would do that. And so on this particular night, I could tell he was frustrated. He was like he was real antsy. We had went for weeks of not really communicating. When I say weeks, I'm talking maybe 2 weeks we had went and not said more than maybe 5 or 6 words to each other, if that. It was very tense because he was getting frustrated. He was not finding jobs, and he would, it was either he would sleep or he was outside. He would sleep, he was outside. It was, and here I am, I'm newly pregnant, so I'm not really paying attention because I'm thinking about this pregnancy. I'm taking care of kids. I'm doing other stuff. And so one day, I go to the email to check the jobs, and there's an email from him, between him and his mom. And you can see it was the email that was up. And in the email, he's telling his mom, I think I've made a mistake. I might need to come back home, and I might have HIV. What? What? What'd you say?